Hey everyone, I'm Evan and welcome to another episode of the ProfNoctis Show. We're so excited that you're joining us. Today we have the wonderful, the articulate Martin, aka Genesis VII. It's a great discussion. Wade, what can we expect as we jump into the conversation?
Yeah, thanks, Evan. Jen is going to dazzle us with all of his knowledge about not only Final Fantasy VII, but we're going to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog and Sega and his journey into content creation. Also, Jen just dazzles us with his beautiful British accent, and everything that he says is brilliant as a result of that. So stay tuned. Get excited for this episode. It's going to be a good one. And with that, let's mosey. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of ProfNoctis weekly show. Even though we're not exactly weekly at this point, I guess it's just like routine and regular.
We're weekly.
Well, you know, with all of the interviews and stuff.
We release every Monday.
We do this every Monday, and then some extras as well. But anyway, we are back, and Evan and I are delighted to bring on with us today a great content creator, deep diver into all things Final Fantasy VII, a theorist. Any other superlatives that I could add? Just amazing video essay.
Just a general guy.
All around
General
great guy.
General good guy. Genesis VII, aka Martin. We are so glad to have you with us, and thank you for being on the show.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me, and I'm hoping that you guys are doing very well.
Doing great. We're excited to have this conversation with you. And just full disclosure, as of recording, we've probably done, I think, 10, 12, maybe more interviews at this point, and you haven't seen a one of them.
No, zero.
So good and so fresh.
It's in the wait later list.
That's right. So you can binge for literally days. I think so much content for you. But that's what I love about this. Like, you are going to bring kind of a fresh, pure perspective into all of this. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about the content that you make and some of the stuff that you currently have been working on?
Yeah, so at the moment, I'm probably known for Final Fantasy stuff. So essentially, I started a series last year, which is called the Final Fantasy Platinum series, where I dive back in to the Final Fantasy games, I complete them, and then I kind of compile a video. When I say complete them, I mean like 100% complete them, do everything and pop the platinum. And then what I do is I take that recent experience, I compare it to my first playthrough, and then also kind of talk about the struggles of getting that 100%, and then throw it all into one nice rounded video. As of late, I've kind of ventured into other RPG franchises because there's a lot of games that I've missed. We all have a backlog. Mine's just piling and piling up, and I'm just slowly going back through those as well. And I also started streaming last year, so it's been a good avenue for me to kind of build a community. So that's been great as well.
Wow. So that's really interesting. I thought that you had been streaming for a long time. Were you YouTube creation, like pre-recorded videos for the most part?
Yeah, I've been doing YouTube for a very long time.
Okay.
So
I knew that you had made videos. I just assumed you were also streaming during that time.
No, I felt like there was something missing. And like when I started really diving into Final Fantasy, I really enjoyed reading through comments and stuff. And I was like, I want to do this on kind of like a live kind of thing and just kind of vibe and have a good time. And it's been a good time since. So
yeah.
Okay, so
it's pretty different to do the live format versus the pre-recorded.
Oh yeah, it is.
A lot of different energy. Good.
Yeah.
Well, I want to know how you got here. Did you take a car or a train? No. Did you?
Well, actually, I
took my slippers and walked down the hall. Did you grow up with video games? Obviously, you make content about video games, which I'm going to have quite a few questions about. But what point in your life did you go, hey, I like these things and I like playing them? Or was it somebody who introduced them to you? Tell me about that.
So my venture into video games was literally, I would go when I was younger, probably like 3 or 4, as far as I can remember. I'd go around to my granddad's every Saturday and he had a Sega Mega Drive, a Sega Genesis.
Yeah.
And he had a collection of games. I think they were more catered to him. There's a game like based on Dick Tracy and a few other games that were way out of my age range. But there was one that contained a certain blue hedgehog. Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, yeah.
And just seeing that on the screen and me being able to control that it blew my mind. I think it blows anyone's mind when they first get to interact with something on a screen. And from there on, every Saturday became like the most exciting day to go to. And then Christmas was coming around, and I was like, Mum, Dad, I need a Sega Mega Drive. I need to play Sonic. At the time, I don't think they had enough funds for a Mega Drive, so they took a step back and got the previous system, which is called the Sega Master System, Mark III, I think is the full thing. And that had Sonic the Hedgehog built into it. So that became my console for like the longest time. And then I finally got the Sega Mega Drive, carried on through that. And then 1997, 1998, there was a certain console called the PlayStation. And again, opening up an avenue, 3D games, stuck with my platformers. And then I guess if I'm weaving in like how I got to Final Fantasy as well, if I may, I went to my local game shop, and I seen here in the UK, the Final Fantasy covers back in the day were very plain. They were just literally the logo and the text. Yep. And I remember seeing that game thinking, oh, you know what? I'm going to turn that around. And this was Final Fantasy VII. I turned around, and the back of that box art, I was like, no way. Is it this is a game? So I rented it. I took it back. I played it, and it was a very different game. I was used to platformers like through and through. So I went through like Crash Bandicoot and Spyro during the PlayStation era. Wow. So this was a very different game. I had to read. There's a lot of text.
A lot of text.
And yeah, I actually died on the first boss against the Scorpion because of a text error, because the attack while the tail's up, and I was like, yes, I'll attack while the tail's up.
I will do that.
Wiped me out, game over. I was like, I don't like this game. I took it straight back. I took it straight back. I wasn't into it. I went back to some platformers for a while, and then I found myself back in the same game shop, and I looked at the game again, and I was like, what if I got past that boss? What is awaiting me? What if?
Yeah.
And then the rest is history. And then obviously I've just followed video games ever since. So that's kind of like an origin story to how I got into games.
That's
and
beautiful.
Final Fantasy. Yeah.
From Dick Tracy to the Scorpion tail. That is just
I know it
phenomenal, right?
Could write a book.
From
I think that would be an ideal title.
To the Scorpion tail, a Genesis story.
A Genesis story.
A tale, a Genesis tale, I think, in honor of Sonic. Yeah.
Yes.
What was it like to growing up in the UK, discovering new games, going to the game shop? You know, we had a similar experience in the United States, but I've heard that in a lot of ways it kind of differed. Like, you found new games by looking at the covers and reading the back. Did the employees tell you, like, recommend games or describe them to you? You have magazines that you read. What was the kind of the vibe, and how did you find new things to be interested in?
Yeah, it was more of like a word of mouth with friends. So I was one of those people that had the best friend that had everything. So as I was on my Master System going to my Sega Mega Drive, he had already got the Mega Drive and got all of the games. So I'd be around that house all the time, and I'd be like, oh, can I borrow this? Can I borrow this? Can I borrow this? Staying with the PlayStation. And then as I was like allowed to venture out onto my own and go to this game shop, posters on the wall, looking at just back covers, and magazines. Magazines were really vital back in the 90s, just getting an issue of a magazine and just opening it up and thinking, oh, I want to play that. I want to play that. And demo discs. Demo discs was the gateway to a lot of games for me back in the day. So
what were the magazines that you were reading?
What, the PlayStation, just the gaming magazines?
Any of them, yeah.
Yeah. We had one in the UK. I think it was literally called Official PlayStation UK. And each issue, which was monthly, would come with a demo disc. And the demo disc.
I remember that one.
Yeah. There were these colored discs with the number at the top. And I had countless of those. Like, I should imagine I probably got them somewhere. They must either be here or my parents' house. But yeah, just that collection. And I'd have one of those, do you know, the classic kind of CD books where you have all the CDs and I had it all. I had it in order, and I remember
generation.
Yeah, and then I'd have like I have demo 56, but I didn't have demo 55, so I'd like scour, like go back to the local newspaper shop to try and, have you got this issue? Like, oh yes.
Whoa! So you had like a complete. So the platinum trophy.
I was about to say,
yeah.
Way to go! Well, then you know what? You do it.
I mean, you've been platinuming life before you started this Final Fantasy series. That's pretty nice.
I think that is a fair way to say it. I think looking back, yes, I did platinum demos.
That's beautiful. Not a lot of people have that completionist mentality outside of their video games, but I appreciate that about you.
Are you that detail oriented in life as well?
I think I've shied away from it as I've grown up, because I think I've the end goal is not always to finish it. It's always for me, I've realized it's just to take part and have fun. And if you don't get it done, that's okay. You can reflect. You can always go back. You don't have to do it there and then, kind of thing. And that's definitely something I've learned as I've gotten older.
How do you know when you're satisfied and it's time to put it down?
I think just feeling like, specifically for video games, I think like just I'm taking something away from it. Whether it's something very small, like I've learned, especially when I was younger, reading the text-based games like Final Fantasy, when I finally got into them, learning a new word that I could take to school and be like, I know what the word attire means. And everyone would be blown away. I'm like, what's attire? I'm like, it's clothing. They're like, whoa. But the small things, like just taking something away from it and being like, I've learned something new here.
When it comes to Rebirth, we've talked to a lot of different people, and it seems like, at least in the fandom, there has been a sort of split decision when it comes to the necessity of completing the game. I guess there's a big debate is there too much content? Does it affect the pacing? All that kind of stuff. What was your impression of that particular thing?
So for me, I played the game a couple of weeks early before release. Okay. So I guess that way I kind of was able to put myself in a bubble during that period. I think a lot of people, even when the game came out on its date, a lot of people probably would have done the same as well. But when it comes to like completing it, I told myself, I was like, I'm not going to look at a trophy list. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm going to take the game as it comes. So if I feel like, you know what, I'm going to go and venture and do this side quest, I'll do the side quest. And naturally, I did each area before I went to the next one, is the way I tackled it. But it wasn't like I told myself to do that straight off the bat. I managed to naturally achieve that, and I enjoyed it. So I took it slow and steady. I knew it was going to take a long time. I wasn't concerned about, I need to get to the ending as fast as possible. I just want to, this is my favorite game of all time, and this has been a highly anticipated part of that. So I just want to take my time, savor it, and just enjoy it. And I ended up 100% in it. So
wow.
And I personally felt there wasn't too much. I think in a way, I probably wanted more. I think to a certain extent.
Well,
so
good news for you. In a few years, we're getting more.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have heard they're making a third one.
There's apparently a part 3. Breaking news.
We're breaking it here. I want to learn a little bit about your YouTube channel and when you started wanting to make content and share and talk about games. What brought that about? You said word of mouth was a thing that you discussed with friends growing up, and at some point you decided to stick yourself in front of a camera. Why?
So, believe it or not, right? It's not on my actual channel that I'm running at the moment. But I first uploaded a video on YouTube of March of 2006.
Okay.
Yeah, it was around that time. AMVs were a thing.
Really early.
Yeah,
AMVs,
YouTube was established around 2005, I think. So I was still living at the home at the time, and I was going to college, so I had a lot of spare time at home. and I had more access to the internet because I was older, because I was supposed to be studying. But I discovered YouTube, and I made a music video for Final Fantasy X, because I'm pretty sure it was like a Fall Out Boy song or something that I was listening around that time. And I was like, it was just that era on YouTube at that time where a lot of people were mashing music with clips of Final Fantasy games.
Oh.
Yeah.
So that's when I it wasn't a serious thing. It was literally, I went on Windows Movie Maker, put the two together and threw it out there. And it's still up there somewhere.
Blue
I don't know
screen
what it's
with the white text coming across for the
Yeah.
intro, the only way to do it.
Yeah. So that was like my first venture into YouTube, but I didn't really know content creation or biting the bug of it, because I've always been creative to a certain extent.
Right.
But I think when I moved out into my own place 2008, and obviously I was on YouTube all the time. That was like a go-to kind of entertainment space. And I had a couple of weeks off work, and there was another site at the time. I think it was called Blog TV. It's non-existent now. And that's like what Twitch is essentially now. It's like a live streaming, but it wasn't for video games. It was literally like a live blog, like just a person talking to a camera. And I started doing that, but because I was off work at the time, I flipped my sleep pattern around, and I was up at night, which would be daytime for you guys, or at least late afternoon, early afternoon. And I managed to harness an audience because I really think like early 2010s, a lot of people liked accents.
They still do.
People dig, they still do dig the accents.
You guys get away with so much with the accents. It's just not fair.
So I was doing this live streaming thing, and I was like getting really big numbers that I didn't think were big at the time, but they were pretty big, and I was put on their front page, and all I was doing was being a goofball. This was before I was doing like Final Fantasy or anything. I had a piano, my electric piano at the time, so I was playing random songs. People were throwing in requests, because I always say that I've got something called almost perfect pitch, where I can listen to something and I can do a kind of arrangement, not exactly, but I can pick it up pretty fast. So that was the talent that had the hook, and I'd like sing songs and rhyme words and really improvise and dance to random songs. But then my holiday time at work ended. And this was at a point where the website had contacted me, and they're like, "We want to make shirts and stuff like this." They're like, this was early days. It was like Spreadshop maybe, or Spreadshirt or something.
Drop shipping had just become a thing.
But so I tried to keep it up for another week as I was back at work, but I couldn't do it. So I just had to give that up. So that part of the content creation kind of went. So I decided to make YouTube videos to fill in the gap, to be able to like still communicate with that audience that I built. But again, work life at the time was just, I could not manage time. So that kind of settled into the sunset. Time passed, and then I made up another YouTube channel, which was based around my passion for music. And I created like, there's a show that came out in the early 90s that I really enjoyed called Power Rangers. And Go Power Rangers. And I enjoyed I enjoyed the music, but more specifically, I liked the background music that was never commercially released, like the kind of like ambient noises and the strings and the trumpets and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I recreated those and put them out on YouTube by ear using like Fruity Loops. And I garnished like an audience. Fruity Loops. Is it called Fruity Loops?
Dude,
is it Fruit Loops?
I think it's called Fruity Loops.
Are you talking about a cereal?
FL Studio.
No. FL Studio. Yeah, I was just there with my bowl of Fruity Loops, and I was just like,
I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, FL Studio, known as Fruity Loops before 2003. Yeah, Fruity Loops.
There you go.
I always know it as Fruity Loops.
We downloaded a very legal version, not from something called LimeWire or Kazaa.
Yes.
That was definitely not cracked to learn how to use the software. Because we loved that thing.
Yeah. So I made that music and people really appreciated it. And I think before that, I lost that YouTube channel, unfortunately, because of forgetting passwords and old email addresses.
Right.
But one of the songs that I created got like 1.5 million views.
Wow.
Which was crazy to me.
Wow.
And at the tail of the end of that is when I made my current YouTube channel, the one that people know me as Genesis VII. And I created that channel not with the intent of making content straight away. What I wanted to do is I was like, I've got this passion. There's something in me that likes doing this. And I need to channel into it to a point where I can not set the bar too high for myself and where I can enjoy it. And it's just a hobby. So I kept it there. And I think literally probably like 6 months after making the channel, I was playing a lot of mobile games at the time. I was just going through like a mobile phase craze. And there was a game called, it was based on WWE.
Yes, you beat me to it because I have a whole line of questioning around how on earth you started making WWE mobile game content. So
I can weave that in. Yeah, I can weave that in.
Let's go.
So there was a game called WWE Tap Mania, and it was a simple game. You gathered the superstars and you just tap the screen to earn cash to then invest into the superstars, and then you move on to the next stage. And that was all it was. And I found a way. I was like, oh, there's no one making any videos on this. So I'm going to literally tap myself into this and make some content. So I did that. But little did I know that the company that was that published the game was Sega, of all companies, which weaves back to how I first got into video games. So when I found out that, and they reached out to me, then there was an individual that reached out to me and said, "We really like your content. Would you like to get the news ahead of time so you can make content?" I was like, yes. So I dived into that and I built up a little bit of an audience. Because I was really into WWE at the time as well, of course. Yeah. So it was weaving everything in together.
Random timeout for wrestling talk. Favorite wrestlers?
My favorite wrestlers, Undertaker. Is my ever since like probably I started watching at the beginning of the Attitude Era, so he was Ministry of Darkness by that time.
Good era.
Yeah, and then went into American Badass. That's when I was really into wrestling. I think from '97 all the way, probably. Well, this will weave into the story actually of my thoughts on wrestling. So I was making that. Sega had reached out, and then obviously with it being Sega, they had another game coming out, and they were like, "We have a Sonic game coming out on mobile. We would like you to be part of it." And I was like, "So Sega are talking to me. They want me to be part of a Sonic game? Like what?" So I was like, yes, because it was already in my wheelhouse because I was doing mobile games,
right?
And I had the communication,
and you had the finger dexterity for the tapping.
Yeah, and this was I think it's called Sonic Forces Speed Battle. I think it's called. It's still running today, actually. So
Speed Battle.
Yeah, and so I started making content for that as well. So I was building up two separate audiences at this time. So I'd like the Sonic fans and the WWE fans. I'm really blessed that I managed to build audiences around this because I don't think it was my original intent. I wasn't too focused on who was watching it. I was just more focused on making the content. So yeah, making the Sonic content, making the WWE content, and then another WWE game came out called WWE Mayhem, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to start weaving more stuff together and build more things. And then on the Sega side of things, they brought out another game, which was like a match 3 game, just simple like Candy Crush and like that. But it's called Sega Heroes, and it took all the IPs from classic Sega games, and you could fight with them. So I started building all this content up with that, and that's how I established the YouTube channel at the beginning. After that, I started taking note on content, and it started to become a bit of a struggle for me personally to manage two very different audiences. Even though there was a common link for me, there wasn't a common link for the people that were watching. And during this time, I was not as interested in wrestling as I once was. This was probably would have been like 2018, 19, maybe, or 2020. So I wasn't too interested. So I kind of like took a step back and I was like, I'm not enjoying this. I'm not, and I don't want to. I was really afraid of like, oh man, this is something I want to do, but I'm not enjoying it. And there was like a conflict constantly. And then I was like, I need to change, and I don't know how to change. So I was constantly like battling with like, do I just quit and just go back to what I was doing? It's like, no, I want to make something. And I had the longest discussion with myself. Like, my favorite thing of all time is Final Fantasy. Do I want to push the button on that? Because what I was afraid of in the back of my mind is like, this is something that I love. I've grown up with. It's changed who I am as a person. If I start to make content on this and then I don't enjoy it, do I then fall out of the thing I love?
Boy,
And I was so afraid of that. But then I just had a moment to myself when I was like, no, it doesn't matter. I love this series and there's so much I can do with it. I'm just going to roll with it and not worry, not set a bar, and just go for it. And then that would have been early last year, late 2023, where I pulled the trigger, and I've absolutely loved it. It's been such a pleasure. Like, the amount of doors that have been opened, the amount of people that I've met, and just always being challenged creatively, but not to a point where I feel like stressed about it. It's like, oh man, what can I do here? What can I talk about here? And that's where I am now. So yeah, that's I might have missed a few things out there. And if you've got questions to fill in the gaps, then I'm more than welcome to answer them. But I think that's probably the best way I can describe the journey, all the way from 2006 to right now, 2024.
Well, I didn't realize that your Final Fantasy content had happened started so late.
It
I
surprised
really
a lot of
thought you
people.
had been doing this for years with
Yeah, a
Final
lot.
Fantasy, but you have been doing this for years. It's just been
Yeah.
WWE and Sega and all that. So
Yeah, so that's what a lot of people a lot of people do think that I've spoken to think I've been in the part of the community a lot longer, but I really haven't. I've been like a viewer for Final Fantasy content, and I just click that switch and just not think about the end goal, but more enjoying the moment, and that's what I'm doing. And I don't think there's any traces of me stopping, which is great for me.
How are you finding these things that are feeling like they're challenging you enough creatively, but then you also have the energy to make it happen? Because you've illustrated a couple examples where you identify a tension that helps you to kind of stay on track, and some boundaries to know when you're not having as much fun anymore and maybe you're not being challenged. But how are you finding these new things to engage with, and what kind of process do you go through when you determine, okay, this might be something that I could see myself wanting to go deeper on?
So the way I've tackled it is I look at each video that I create now as like a lesson. So I know that regardless of how that's perceived, whatever the numbers might be, whatever the likes, dislikes ratio is, or whatever the comments are, I'm walking away from that video that I've learned something new, whether it's a new way that I've managed to edit a video, a new discovering how a certain piece of background music might work in a certain thing that I might be talking about. It could be looking at one of the comments and thinking, you know what, that is a very good point. I'm going to take that and I'm going to run with it, because I'm just taking each thing. I look at each video as a lesson, and the term I always like to use is that I'm forever learning with content creation, and that's what I love about it. I think that's the hook for me. I always go away from either watching or creating with something new, and I think, and that hasn't stopped. So, and that's been like that's how I've been dealing with it this time around, especially with the Final Fantasy content.
I love that. What is to kind of piggyback on that? So many content creators, when you create something, it's like your baby, right? And the comment section can kind of be brutal, and it is really challenging for all of us to really look honestly at some of the things that we create, right? How do you manage that level of ownership and also humility as you're trying to take lessons from this? What would you say to aspiring content creators about that kind of mentality?
I would say forget about numbers. take numbers straight out of your mind with content creators, because that content creation, because that will become an unhealthy obsession, and comparisons will always, every video you make will be a comparison to the last. Even though you want to improve and learn, don't use the numbers to do that. Just learn from yourself. So like when I make my videos, nothing's scripted. I don't script anything. And it's my personal preference. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with. I just can't. I always fall into a very monotone voice when I'm reading from a script. Mm-hmm. So I usually go off a few bullet points, and then I'm able to like come up with things on the top of my mind and roll with that. And sometimes that might get cut out because I'm gone on for too long. But sometimes it really might pinpoint something that's a really valid point and come across, and it will also come across very natural, like we're having a conversation.
Yeah.
But as for like comments and everything like that, I read all my comments, and if there's something that I feel like I don't agree with, I look at it and I was like, I don't agree with that. That's fine. I will never make it a thing, but I will always read it thinking maybe there is something I've missed. Maybe it could be a piece of factual information that I might have brushed over wrong, or maybe there was one thing that came up recently with my videos. Is currently my background is my dining room. It's not like the most attractive background for like a video in some people's minds, but I've never thought about that. But I own a green screen, so I started using my green screen in the videos. I took that comment, I didn't take it personally. I was like, oh, you know what, that is an actual point. I'm going to make my backgrounds a bit more interesting. So that's just the way I took it. And then obviously if there's the trolls, then I'll ignore those.
Sure.
Simply. That's all I do.
Get back under your bridge, you troll.
Just stay there.
Be gone, troll. Be gone. You have talked about some pretty varied interests that you engage with on a high level. You like the video games, you like to play music, you play music or at least enjoy music on kind of a higher level, being able to kind of improvise and put on a live show really early on and do some improvisational, engaging activities. Then you like video games, you like editing, you like learning about background music. Where does that creativity come from, and what was it like for you to cultivate that kind of as you grew up?
I think I've always had an interest of like just creating in general, because early on, before like doing videos and stuff, I would do like my dad played. He always had an electric keyboard, and I'd always like listen to him, and I'd always be like, whenever he went to work, I would sneak on and try and replay what he did. And obviously he read sheet music, and that's mumbo jumbo to me. I still can't understand it to this day. So I'd always like challenge myself and remember what he played, and I'll try and play it back. And as that went on, I obviously stemmed from that and started listening to music and playing it back. And then I was also doing art at the time, and I was like, I want to make my own video game, kind of like when I was in my teens. So I've always had like a knack of creativity, whether it's, and I do like improvising. I do like, as much as it's weird, I like being put on the spot where I can kind of not, I guess sometimes dig myself out of it, because I dig myself in with some of the improv. Like you get so lost in your own words sometimes, you're like, where am I going with this?
Yeah.
I kind of like that. Like sometimes I'll speak myself into a hole, and it's a challenge to get myself out. But at the same time, I've got anxiety. So when it's a face-to-face thing, I'm a very different person than I am. Not a very different person. I think I'm the same person in person than I am in the camera. But I think there's definitely a default kind of wall that gets put up that I have to mentally tackle. And it's another thing that I've learned as I've gotten older, is just to kind of not think about it. As easy as that piece of advice is, just don't think about it and just roll with it. And that's just, again, that weaves into the content creation. It's not like I don't put thought into it, but I don't put thought into any kind of negative repercussions. I always think positively, like there's going to be one person out there that's going to watch it and they're going to take something away, and that's good enough for me. That's all I ask. So I think I answered the question. I did exactly what I said. I was talking about when I like dig myself into a hole and I'm like climbing out and I'm giving you like 4 different answers. But I'm hoping that you managed to.
It's one of the things that I really like about you and appreciate about your videos, because I know that we would love, if you're comfortable with it, to talk a little bit more about your experience with anxiety and how it's kind of shaped that journey and how you've coped and how the kind of creative process has helped with that. But for me, real quick, before we do, you talk about this improvisation and digging yourself into a hole because it's fun to see if you can climb your way out of it. One of the things that I've really appreciated about your presentation style is that it's very balanced to me, where you kind of illustrate both sides of the street with where the guardrails are, and you say, this is about as far as we're going to go over here, and this is about as far as we're going to go over here, and most of the stuff that you're going to experience is going to be in the middle. So for people who like it this way, this is going to land really well. For people who like it this way, you may struggle with this, but this is going to land really well for you. And I think it takes a really empathetic mind to really understand ideas and people, to be able to communicate them in the way that you do. I wonder, before we jump into the kind of curiosity around anxiety and some of your challenges, where does that style come from for you? And have you always been like that? Or are your parents like that? What is that balanced and methodical approach that somehow I think the improvisation keeps it really engaging too? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think I don't like to be overly positive, and at the same time, I don't want you. I mean, you explained it perfectly with the guardrails either side. Like, I don't like to go over to too positivity, not because that's a bad thing, just because I like to just keep it in that center lane. And it's the same with negativity. Like, there'll be things I talk about that I don't really like, but I always accept that might just. I don't like say this is a bad game. It'll be like, I feel like I didn't vibe with this, or it might be more on me than the game. Maybe I didn't get what the message was. And I'm always very acceptive of, like, I know it's my opinion and that will be different. I know that my opinion will be different to someone else's, and that I will always bear in mind that what they might say about it. And I guess I kind of am like that in life as well. And I think that's just something that I picked up. I think just in general, I don't think it was an influence from anyone. I just never was like, oh, this is awesome. Even though I do have moments where I'm like, yes.
Right.
But it's not like, I don't do that all the time. I usually keep all of that stuff in here in a way. And I try and like sieve it out to a point where I can present it, where it doesn't come from like for example, like if I was to talk about Final Fantasy VII, I understand that a majority of the things I'll talk about will be biased from me, like because it's my favorite game. It resonated at a certain time in my childhood, and it affected me completely different to the person I'm probably presenting it to, and I can accept that. So that's why I go for that level, because I'm not trying to convince anyone. I'm trying to create a conversation. I think is probably what I'm trying to aim
very
for.
Invitational. I mean, it really you leave a lot of space for. I'll just speak to my experience as a viewer. You leave a lot of space for me to think and process a little bit before you bring up the next topic, and it's like it seems like a natural pacing. I'm sure it's something that's somewhat intentional at this point, but as someone who likes to fill space, you create that gap for me to sit in it for a minute before we kind of bring up the next topic. And I would rather hit the next 10 things in a row. Like, let's see if I can speed run the grocery list. And I really do appreciate that. And Wade, I'm curious about kind of what you want to know more about and what you're thinking.
Yeah, I'm honestly just taking a lot of mental notes. I've observed this about you. We've been on a couple of shows together. We've discussed a lot of things, mainly about Final Fantasy, but it's nice to hear the ways that kind of you tick regarding content creation. And I like this posturing of curiosity. I think that a lot of times views that are reactionary or videos that are reactionary do get a lot of clout and buzz, good or bad or whatever. But for you, it seems every time I've ever been on a show, I've always been really impressed that you come with a grounded impression of the game. Like, it's grounded in, like, these are the things that really resonated with me. And I can see how other people may not, or all of these things, but I think that really gives you almost like a sage-like wisdom when it comes to when it comes to your opinions. And I think that that's why those opinions hold a little bit more weight. When it comes to your content creation, I guess, I guess Evan kind of mentioned this. Is that something that you're consciously aware of, or are you trying to practice that, or is that more innate to who you are as a person?
I think over time it's become more like how I am. Like I'm
Mm,
always, I just like to be level-headed because
mm,
I feel like that's the best way you get other views from both sides.
mm,
If I'm right in the middle, then I'm going to hopefully get bits from both sides. And I guess weaving into just like personal life, I do a lot of listening. I like not to be
yeah.
like a fly in the wall, but I listen. I think this weaves into my anxiety because I'm very quiet in person. I always listen, and I'll end up hearing a conversation that's going off over there, and I take it in, and it's not like I take it in and I want to that they've spoken about something, so I'm going to brag about it. I take it and I let it just kind of sit in there. Most of the times it will fizzle out because I'm not like someone that will like brag about something, but I just let things sit and listen. I think as I've gotten older, I'd like to listen more as much as I've wanted to speak, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
it's that kind of quiet listening and reflection
Yeah.
that I think has really sent you into the stratosphere as far as your own content creation. Because when you speak, again, because of that reflection, because of that curation and curiosity, you have something worth listening to.
Mm.
And that's every time we've ever been on a show together, I'm always like, Jen is processing this differently than I am. And I'm like, I want to think like that and
Mm.
learn to listen a little bit better about that. In a world where so many people are trying to get their voice out there, I appreciate you curating voices and then bringing up your stance. It's really interesting. So it's not really a
I
question. It's just an
yeah.
admonition. Or like
Yeah, and I always appreciate anyone that the one thing I always take away from a video is I'll always appreciate that someone that's given me the time.
yeah.
Like that's the way I always look at content creation. Someone's given me their time to listen to what I've got to say. So if they want to drop a comment, then I will make sure I look at it, and if it's something that I can respond to or something we can converse about, then I will do that.
What a refreshing way of thinking about the comment section.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, you spent time
Yeah.
listening or watching something that I
Good
created.
attitude.
So let
Yeah.
me pay that back to you.
I think I'm definitely like at a point where I just personally can't be bothered with people that bring a negative, like a really purposeful negative energy.
Yeah.
Like there'll be people that will have a different perspective, and if they handle it the way that I've handled it, then we can converse. That's how a conversation
Oh,
is
yeah.
formed, and it's like even can get into a debate, like a friendly debate if it needs to. But the ones that are purposely negative, I've pretty much locked
Yeah.
into
So with this,
stay out the way.
get out the way. You're like my favorite wrestling character's thing, and you just pull a baseball bat out of the audience.
Yeah.
So
Just glare down at them from the rafters.
that's it.
The comment section's in the ring, and I'm just like,
It's either him or Rey Mysterio or Goldberg. I love Goldberg.
Oh,
Back in the day,
Goldberg,
Pete Goldberg was incredible. I mean, my friends and I lost our minds when he came out and just speared everybody over and over. Anyways, so you talk about having a balanced approach, but then you also talk about how there's some anxiety that has created some real pressure. I wonder what your experience has been, because those are two things at odds with each other. You know, I want to be a listener. I want to have balance. I want to make sure that I understand the moving parts of an argument and other people's experience. And then you have an emotion like anxiety, which from my experience, I'll speak personally, is pressure, demands an answer, like figure this out quickly. There is no relaxing and balanced approach. It is now, like, you are in trouble, you are potentially in danger, is the short circuiting that I experience with my brain. And that's the way that's happened. So those seem to be at odds with one another. What has your journey been with dealing with anxiety and having that personality, and how has content creation been a part of that kind of what sounds like maybe a healing and coping process?
Yeah. So with anxiety, I probably found out or spoke to someone in that kind of field and come to terms that this is what's going on with me. Probably like at the start of making this current YouTube channel, which will, I keep saying weave in. It's like my go-to kind of phrase, but it'll weave in a minute. But at an early age, I always thought I was shy. I thought I was a very shy lad growing up, and I would always, even like moments like this, talking where there's a group of people, I'll always think about like when's the best time to come in if everyone's speaking at the same time, because I don't want to speak over it. That's kind of like how I was like always not wanting to be rude, and because the more I thought about it, the more it was easier for me just to be quiet and not say anything and just listen. So as time got on, it started to affect personal life, like with work, because I worked in retail, and COVID was a tough time in retail. So that it all kind of like bashed together, and I would think way too much. Like there'll be a situation where I'd be going into work and I'd be thinking, okay, what manager is on? What time is he finishing? What time is the next manager in? Who am I in with? Oh, what if this customer comes in? Oh, what about if this? It's creating all these situations which realistically would probably not happen. And that got on top of me, and I didn't know how to swim out of that. I was just overloading my mind with just things that were essentially in my head. So eventually I went to therapy, and the one thing that I took away from that is, I'll always remember it because I take it to this day, is fact and opinion. Taking the time of listening to a thought in your head and telling yourself, like asking yourself, is this a fact? Is this actually happening? Or is this your opinion? And if it was your opinion, then push that to the side. Don't worry about it. Concentrate on the facts that are happening in your life. So I took that and I rolled with that. And a good way to, and that's what went into the content creation. It was a good outlet of me being factual to an extent. Like I knew that I liked content creation. I liked creating content. So I focused on that fact, and the opinion of like what I'd kept failing with previous YouTube channels and doing live shows was setting the bar up too high for myself. And I understood that was on me. That was completely on me. It wasn't on the things I was doing. It wasn't on like the websites I was on or anything like that. It was all on me. So I kind of like, it's almost like a soft reset for me.
Yeah.
So, and that's the way that fact and opinion thing is how I've pretty much handled everything now. I mean, there are times where I'll still struggle with anxiety. There'll be times where, like, if we're in a show that we've been in before, I will like, oh, I really want to get this point out, but when would be the right? I still have that thought process. So it's almost like I'm running the same race as someone that doesn't have these problems, but I've got a few hurdles that I need to jump over, but I know that I can clear them now.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So I've learned to live with it, and I've learned. I know that I think the ultimate thing was accepting that I had it and then understanding it. So
I appreciate you saying it like that, and I appreciate the way that you broke it down so specifically, because sometimes we do kind of say, oh, just like jump out there, put yourself out there or whatever, just keep going. But the delineation between fact and opinion, I'm going to take that from you a little bit and share it with my students, because no one really is able to talk about that level of self-awareness with such practicality. I think that is what is really useful about this. We sometimes talk about stopping our thought pattern, but what do you do with it? And it's really vetting it and say, okay, is this fact? Is this opinion? And if so, on each one of those, what do I do with it?
Yeah.
That's incredibly helpful. Certainly as a content creator, but just as a human being, that's amazing.
I wonder if you could speak a little bit quickly to the length of time that it took to understand that concept. You have your coping process, which is, okay, for me, right, this is helpful. I'm going to focus on fact or opinion, and that's going to help me get into the right mindset to then be able to cope with some of the anxiety that I'm experiencing specifically. I think a lot of the time when people talk about anxiety or mental health, we get to that like, and this is the thing that made it click, but we don't get and this is how long it took for it to actually click, even though I understood it. Could you talk about, I think because we do have a lot of folks who, everybody's dealing with their stuff, right? Everybody kind of has some things they're dealing with. Like, was it a bit of a period of time to like understand the concept, live into the concept, practice the concept? Like, talk us through the time frame in which you started to experience that healing. And, oh, hey, buddy, I'm going to give you guys.
Hey, who's joined the show?
Hey, this is Poe.
Hello there.
Oh,
Hi, this is my buddy.
Came to listen to my stories.
They did.
He doesn't have headphones. Hold on, let me give him the headphones.
Oh my God.
All right, sweetie. All right, you gotta go back to bed. Good boy.
This episode's for the dogs,
I know. Sorry, everybody. He's so sweet. I'm dog sitting this weekend.
Hey, we don't mind.
Oh, he's
we
so
don't mind.
sweet. I was
Never gonna mind the pup.
Oh, my Millie. No, the other ones. All right, go on. No bark though. So
Cool.
time period and the time frame that you kind of felt like you were doing.
Yeah, I think the initial time period is quite long, and I think it's important to note that I still think that the click hasn't happened still yet, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Like I think the one thing you need to accept is that the click isn't going to happen in a way. Like it wouldn't. Let me try and like it will not go away, but you can learn to be in control of it. And that was the lesson that needed to be learned, because I thought I was going to therapy they would be like, oh, it's gone now. I thought, I was going to get rid of it, and I wasn't going to be. I was going to just get rid of it like a broken arm or something like that.
Right.
But slowly, the more that I had these sessions, and the more I like learned about myself, and we had this like massive whiteboard, and we'd be writing everything like from how I was feeling that day to how I was feeling last week, or what did I do here. And it really gave me like an insight of like, okay, right. And that's where the fact and opinion came in. And I think that was a really hard thing to do, because when you've got like a billion thoughts coming into your head for usually just one scenario, like I could give you a scenario like, I'm going to go to the shop. These are the 1,000 things that could happen while I walk to the shop. How many of those are actually going to happen?
Right.
I think the one thing that's going to be happening is I'm going to pay for something and I'm going to bring it back. Let's just focus on that.
Yeah.
And that took a while, because when you're juggling so many thoughts and you don't know if they are fact and opinion, and you've not really spoke to someone about it. And I think that's the important thing as well. Speaking to someone that is not related to you whatsoever, someone that's just a complete stranger, and you get this feeling of like you are essentially unloading, but you get to feel like how good that feels. Like, oh, hold on a minute, I'm letting this actually can come out. It can come out of my head. It doesn't need to stay in. So it's all these little things that all added together, and that did take time, because I had to accept the fact that I had anxiety, and that was a tough thing. Like, okay, there's something wrong in between these ears of mine, and I need to solve it and coming to grips with that and going down that road. But then talking to a stranger about it, are they going to essentially going to think, are they going to judge me? Are they going to, I'm going to tell them that I had this kind of day. They could take
even if they're
50 opinions of it.
Right.
Yeah. And it just took days and days of learning to do it. And again, there's still days like, even like preparing for this, I would have the thoughts enter my mind like, okay, what if I get asked this question? What if I get asked that question? What if the internet goes down? What if this light turns off? Like, and I'm like, no, it's a simple thing now where they're still there, but they're not like coming into the peripheral. They're floating around there. Half the time they're falling out of there.
Right.
And I'm focusing on like, hey, I'm here for a good time. Let's talk kind of thing. So
they're not in control. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
And I've also noticed like when I do talk about it, I realize like, hey, I'm talking a lot about this. And that's usually a good thing, because you are literally coming to terms, like you are at terms with it in that moment. So you are happy to talk about it. You are talking about it, and you are not unintentionally, but you're like unknowingly letting all those worries float off. So the amount of worries that probably floated off me just during this conversation, there's probably thousands, but I don't need to think about that because
Well,
I'm kind of in the moment.
Yeah, thanks
I
for sharing
love
that.
it. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that.
That's
And
okay. It feels good. Like it
no,
always feels good to share it.
I appreciate you not only saying it, but modeling it for the people of your community, our community, because
Yeah.
this is the kind of thing that helps overcome stigmas, right?
Yeah.
To say, hey, this is what goes on with me. And the other thing that you said that really strikes me is there isn't that moment where it just clicks and suddenly, oh, behold, I'm healed, right?
Mm.
But instead, we talk in terms of so many of us think of issues that we may experience or things that we are trying to overcome as problems to solve, but we prefer to speak in terms of tensions to manage instead. And so to go through life knowing the strategies and the coping mechanisms and the habits that are going to help us manage those tensions and tendencies that we have, knowing that we're never going to fully overcome that. I think that there's wisdom in that, a great deal. Have you how have you felt as though this has impacted you as a content creator? Because it's one thing to come onto this show and kind of talk about this. Is this something you speak openly about in your own content or try to model for your community, especially as you've begun live streaming more recently?
I think with live streaming, there are definitely moments where I will like take more of a time to be like, let's say, for example, before a stream, I've had a bit of a bad day. Like maybe I've spent too long in here today. I'm lucky enough to have an outlet where there's people coming to kind of join me to kind of do it. And it's not like trauma dumping or anything like that, but it's just like it's almost like a mutual understanding. Like, hey, we all have heads and they all work in wonderful and weird ways. Let's just take a moment. Like I always, before I start a stream, I like to chat for like 20 minutes, ask how people's weeks have been. Because the way I've always tackled like speaking to people, like I have no idea what they may have gone through today, but if I've brought a conversation out of them, if they've struck a little bit of a smile, if they've kind of gone like, hey, like I've contributed to that, and that's a good feeling. Like it's a really good feeling.
I love that. And one of my kind of core values is, at least when I'm live streaming and stuff, is we're going to choose connection over content. And so if I'm able to curate that level of connection, even in that first 5-10 minute check-in sort of thing, then the content will kind of write itself. I mean, I've done the work beforehand that I need for the content, but that connection is something that we all crave. And to be in the position that you are in, this video content creator for years and years, and now to surround yourself with a community. I mean, I just want to be that outside voice saying to you, the health that you are experiencing and the way that you're able to curate that for others, that is not insignificant.
That's really cool.
That is major.
I think
you're helping make the internet a more positive place. And
I think that's been like a missing piece for me, like in the journey with the mental health and just the content creation in general. Like I said, like they got to a point where I was like, I think I need to build a community of people. And as that time's gone on, a year past, like I've got the same people that come in, and I absolutely love it. I have new people that come in, even if they're just there for that certain game I'm playing, or if they're there for a certain moment, that's fine. But it's that missing piece of just talking is a good thing. So.
And the live streaming format is a little more interactive. I wonder if, as kind of we wrap up the first part of the interview, if you could talk a little bit about what you like about the live content versus some of the pre-recorded things, and where you see some value, because you model that kind of vulnerability really well, where it's not full access to every single part of your life, but you're open enough to say, today wasn't so great, but how's everybody else doing? That's just cracking the window and allowing some fresh air in to the time seems like something that's pretty neat in that live format. But what have you found to be enjoyable about it, and what would you compare it with that pre-recorded content?
I think live streaming is a lot easier when it comes to pre-recorded content in terms of like workload. Like you record the video, you then go through that video, you find all the mistakes, you edit them out. You then put some background music in, you then come up with the thumbnail, you come up with the title. So I'm not saying it's a bad journey because it's something I enjoy doing, but when you compare it to just pressing the red button and just kind of playing a game, not worried about any mistake, you don't need to worry. You're like, oh, I need to edit this out. I don't need to edit out. I'm live. Like what happens. So that's like the easiest go-to for that. But I think other things when live streaming compared to to pre-recorded content, again, is just the in the momentness. Like you get to, like when I make the pre-recorded content, I'm talking to you about how I felt about the game. Like, hey, this is how I felt. This is what I like. This is what I didn't like. If it's a game that I'm live streaming for the first time and you happen to be there, you get to witness that. Like you get to witness that emotion. I get to share. I'm sharing a first time experience with you, and it's always really nice when it's someone's favorite game. Like I like sneaking into streams of people playing Final Fantasy VII for the first time because it gives me joy just to hey, how are they going to react to it? Especially as time has gone on, it's like how are they going to react to it? And I'm not one of these people that will be like the backseaters that will be like, oh, this moment coming up is really going to be really good. I like to just take the step back and just look. I'm a big lurker. I think the term in the live streaming world is
right.
And I like to just, and I would like to think that people that are doing that for me are feeling what I feel when I do it. I think if that makes sense. So I just kind of like that. I guess it's like it's almost like it is an intimate experience sometimes. Live streaming, like you're sharing an emotion live, and it's not that in most cases isn't manufactured. As natural as it can be.
It's genuine, yeah. Well, I think it would be probably pretty good if we took a little stretch break and shared some get to know you live experiences together. So we're going to take our mini game stretch break, which is definitely not going to be recorded at the very, very end of the interview and spliced in. It's something that we're truly about to do right now. We would never.
We're ready. We're doing it. We're about to go for it.
We would never film the mini game stretch break at the very end. Never in a million years. We wouldn't dream of it. So see ya. Hey everybody, it's that time of the episode for our mini game stretch break, which means that we take a little bit of break and we stretch. So let's get some stretching in, everybody. We're here with Martin, aka Genesis VII. And he's getting a good stretch in. It's important to be kind to your body. So wherever you find yourself, whatever's going on in your day, whatever stressors you're dealing with, let's just let those go. Get a little stretch in, and don't let it be the defining part of your day or week. You got this. You're going to get through it. So that being said, it wouldn't be a minigame stretch break without our theme music. Let's hit it, boys. 3, 2, 1.
Nice.
There we go. Improvisational jazz. All right, great. So I am here with the bingo wheel of vulnerability. Numbers 1 through 50 are in the bingo wheel. Martin, as our guest, please choose a number 1 through 50.
I will pick number 16.
Number 16 is the number. Wade, what's your number?
21.
21. I will take number 42. 42. So 16.
That was my brother's football number.
21 and 42. Listener, make sure that you pick a number. Let us know if you get it in the comments. Here we go. Martin, tell me when.
When?
Okay, we have a ball. They have been falling out onto the floor, so I'm going to stop it here. Oh, wow. So close. The number was 20.
Oh, so close, Wade.
That was really close.
You were really close. You were
really close.
What questions are we working with today? And let's hear number 20.
Today we are going to be reading from Chuck Klosterman's Hypotheticals, 50 Questions for Insane Conversations. Also, he is the author of Eating the Dinosaur and Sex, Drugs, and Cocoa Puffs. So,
fun fact right there.
Thanks, Chuck.
It's gonna be fun. Thanks, Chuck. These are great conversations. I use these in my class, actually, for actual minigame stretch break. Okay, so here we go. The title of this question, because the questions have titles, is called The Meteor, which feels very Final Fantasy VII coded.
The
I feel like it was
meteor.
meant to be.
Are we ready? Okay, so the question is a little long. Bear with me. I'll try to make it a dramatic reading.
All right, I'm going to close my eyes and listen.
Earth is about to be struck by a mammoth meteor. Though no one knows exactly what will happen, most scientists assume life on Earth will be totally altered and potentially eliminated. Everyone on the planet is freaking out. Suddenly, you receive a bizarre email. The government demands that you must fly to Washington, D.C. immediately by order of the president. That includes you too, Genesis. You have a longer flight. The email message includes a first-class plane ticket. Once you arrive at the airport, military police confiscate your cell phone and wordlessly transport you to a secret hangar that houses 10 massive space shuttles. You are escorted onto one of the ships. Not counting the crew, there are 24 equally confused people waiting on board. You recognize a few of these people instantly. Bill Gates, the musician Prince, Oprah Winfrey. When the individuals you don't recognize begin talking and interacting with one another, it becomes clear that all of them are brilliant scientists, consequential artists, or extremely wealthy political figures. The ship's captain informs all of the passengers that the space shuttle will be leaving Earth in 2 hours. He does not say where you are going, although he does insist that anyone who wants to remain on Earth is free to stay behind. Now, here's the question. You are 90% certain you've been selected for this trip by mistake. Do you remain on board? And if you do, how will you explain your presence to the other 24 passengers? You have no idea if admitting your true identity will disqualify you from traveling. Go.
I have a question, clarifying question.
Clarifying question, yes.
I'm raising my hand.
Yes.
Prince, is he back from the dead? Or did he never actually die?
Turns out he never died.
Okay,
They've
so
been harboring him,
Prince's death was faked. And then I now see him at a space shuttle. Does he have his guitar?
It does not say. Does it change your answer if he has his guitar?
It's certainly going to be a factor. Because if this like scientist brought some supplies and Prince has his guitar and Bill Gates has his money or something like that, then I will feel as one of the 24 that maybe I should have had some sort of
contribution,
prop or contribution. It would be a context.
Like your action figure. You've got the figure and then the accessory that goes with it.
Yeah. So Prince has guitar. Oprah Winfrey has free gifts.
Free gifts, ours.
And do you feel like Oprah's arms for her action figure would articulate really exaggeratedly so you could really
There's a button on back and she goes,
with all of the bendable points.
That's exactly the real bendy. Okay. Well, I can go, but if somebody else is ready, I certainly would.
Well,
clear
I
the
feel
floor.
like you've asked a lot of clarifying questions, so why don't you start us off?
So let's just assume that I'm not abandoning like family responsibilities and things like that. So,
well, I mean, they're probably gone in the meteor.
Was the meteor hit yet?
Well, no, I mean
I'd rather die
like
with my family than get on a ship with
so
Bill
you get
Gates and
off
Oprah. So if they're never going to survive and I just have to live on with Oprah Winfrey, Bill Gates, and Zombie Prince,
okay, interesting.
Like I would rather probably die with my family and just rough out the remainder of it than get on the ship. Now, if we're saying your family is taken care of, so it's just a matter of like it's an imposter thing, you have to live on, and we're gonna maybe go stop the asteroid, then saving my family. It's more of an Armageddon situation that we're dealing with.
Interesting. Okay.
Then buckle up. I'll ask Prince if I can rip a few licks on the guitar, and then we're just going to have to see where we go. So yes, I would do that. And I would try and be overly mysterious about my reasoning for being there, thus making it seem more valid that I should be there because I am the wild card. So I wonder why they asked me to be here of all people. So I would lean into the mystery. Anyways, that's me, and I'm finished asking clarifying questions for now.
Okay, so your answer was both. Jen, what's up?
So I'm gonna make the assumption that the family's either taken care of or they have they've unfortunately like perished in the meteor.
Or you're saving them.
Or I'm saving them. So I'm going to take them out of the equation in that aspect. When it comes to being on, you said there's 10 shuttles in total, right?
Yeah, there's 10 massive space shuttles. Yeah.
Okay. So what I would do, because I would feel like, hey, I'm not supposed to be on here, but I don't want to tell them who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, hey guys, can you see that out there? And they'll be like, oh, what? I was like, no, can you let me go grab it? And I'll run out, go grab it, and I would go into one of the other shuttles. And I wouldn't feel, I don't know, I just wouldn't vibe with Oprah Winfrey on a flight.
Oh, you don't want to be with Oprah and Bill Gates?
No, specifically. I don't think we would. I don't think our conversations would last in this, however long this journey may be. I think the conversation would be pretty short. So I would want to try and find myself on a different shuttle. So what I would do is I'd go on to a different shuttle. I'd just pick one at random. And I'd be like, hey guys, I've just come off the VIP shuttle with Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey. I've been allocated to just kind of chill out with you guys. So who's ready for a good time? And we're going to escape from this meteor. We're going to save everyone. Who's in? Let's get this party started. And I would probably give myself a bit more of a role where I would feel like I would enjoy this journey. In this situation, I could either be like, I'll vibe with the people, or I'll just sit along at the front.
That is the most unexpected answer ever, where you're like, I don't want to hang out with Oprah.
I want to be with the people.
I want to be with the people.
He's a man
I
of
would
the
want
people.
to. I think ultimately, I would want to be with the people. I think it's because these are established folk, and we wouldn't vibe. We might vibe on a few things, but I think I would want to be with the people. So I would find myself in a different shuttle and be like, hey,
do you
guys.
have a specific question that you would like need to know the answer to in order to know if you can vibe with someone?
Ooh. Is that on the card as well?
Yeah, it is.
It's a remarkable showing of class solidarity, really.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I wouldn't need to. I think because I think what I'm doing in that situation is I'm definitely judging book by its cover in that situation.
Totally.
So
like, what's their opinion of Oprah? Like,
that's a good cold open. Hi, I'm Evan. Tell me your thoughts on Oprah.
Yeah, she's all right.
I'll wait.
She's all right.
She's all right. I don't think there's a specific question I would ask. I think I'd be more. I'd listen a little bit and then establish a question based on what I've learned in that small amount of time.
Well, you're halfway to Earth too at that point.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. I think it all works out.
I think it does.
What about
as
you, Wade?
for me, I think, listen, I'm going to go along, and I don't know who they think that I am, but I'm going to live it to a T. And I'm going to be like, yes, absolutely, I am Matt Damon. I was great in Good Will Hunting and whatever other movie you liked me in. And so, yeah. And I'd probably let them know once we landed on Earth too.
That you're not Matt Damon.
And Elon Musk greeted us at the gate or whatever.
So hold on.
How would you tell them?
Yeah.
How would you tell them? Would you be like, hey, I'm not Matt Damon, or would it be like more of a subtle?
Yeah, because in this scenario, you're entirely pretending to be Matt Damon and just trusting that no one's going to call you out on it.
Here's the thing. Like, if I land and I have somehow let them believe that I am Matt Damon, I will be Matt Damon for the rest of my life. Okay, I just will be, and I will have adopted. Good Will Hunting is my favorite movie of all time. I will just live it, and I'll just say things like, you know what? I take that back. I would probably let them know, and I'd be like, "Hey, do you like apples? How do you like them apples? I'm not Matt Damon." And then I'd leave them forever and start.
I just
don't
love
know.
the idea of you confidently walking around, looking exactly how you look. And someone's like,
Yeah.
"Why are you here?" And you go, "I'm Matt Damon."
Matt
They're
Damon.
like, "No, we know what Matt Damon looks like." And you're like, "Look it up on your phone." Oh, wait,
Oh,
they
you-
took
oh,
it.
you can.
I
They took
am
your
Matt
phone.
Damon. Like the
I am Matt
ultimate
Damon.
gaslight.
Now, let me tell you these old stories about Ben Affleck, like my best friend, Ben
That's
Affleck.
so true. And do you think you would just hug people and then just say, "It's not your fault"?
No, that's Robin Williams.
Yeah,
Like,
but it's from the movie. What,
It's
Matt,
from
you
the
don't
movie,
think
but
you
the
don't
whole
think that Goodwill Hunting learned to say it's not your fault in a hug? You don't think he went and got the girl, Wade? He went and got the girl. You don't think that
did.
that's a skill that he acquired from
not a
Robin
girl.
Williams?
I get it.
The lingering hug and the "it's not your fault." It never left him.
They would probably ask me, could I do a math question? And I'd be like, no.
Oh,
And
that
they're
was
like,
just
"You're
for,
not
that
Matt
was for the
Damon."
movie. The math was for the movie.
I am not Math Damon. That's-
I think they would forgive you with that line. I think they'd be like, "Oh, yeah,
They would.
hey,
It's like,
we like this."
practical Oprah would be like, you get a car.
Get your stretch in, everybody. Let's do an Oprah stretch.
Oprah stretch.
Let's get back to the episode. Okay, we are back from our minigame stretch break, and we are ready to start talking about specifically some Final Fantasy VII experiences, theories, thoughts here with Martin. But before we jump into Rebirth, I think we need to hear a little bit more about your history with the game past the Scorpion's Tail. So I wonder if we could pick back up from you decided to pick back up the game and you said, "You know what? I'm going to give this another chance." Tell us what that experience was like and kind of what this game meant to you when you played through it.
Well, I beat the guard Scorpion.
Yeah,
I
take
beat
that.
it. I got past that.
Yeah, take
Finally.
that,
And-
Scorpion.
Then the credits rolled, and it was great.
Yeah, that was it.
And then that was the game.
So there's like phases when it comes to Final Fantasy VII. So I first played this in probably 98. So I would have been, if I could do the maths, around 9 years old. So I treated my first playthrough as a video game with some additional reading. So I enjoyed like the more of the gameplay mechanics at that stage. And then as I rolled credits and it was a real good time, and I moved through other Final Fantasies. But going back to Final Fantasy VII, I think when I went to secondary school, which I think you guys would call high school, so there's no
What's the
kind
one
of,
before uni?
for us, it's I call it secondary school.
Okay, that's
so
high
we
school
have
then.
we,
Yeah.
we have like
That's
infant
high school,
school. Yeah, we have like infant school, junior school, then primary school,
Okay.
and secondary school. If that makes sense.
It's a lot of schools.
Yeah, and because I think you when you separate your years, you like seventh grade, eighth grade.
Yeah, we're
Wait,
elementary, middle school, sometimes a junior high, and then high school.
Yeah.
Here's a fun
Though
one.
sometimes middle and junior high are the same.
Yeah. We
It
have
just
like
depends.
first grade, second grade, third grade, except first grade isn't the first grade that you go into. That one's called
No, it's-
that one's called kindergarten.
Yeah. So we call our kindergarten reception, and then it goes year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, all the way to year 11.
So this is your fault? We
Well,
took
my fault.
the Pilgrims took kindergarten over on the Mayflower across the Atlantic. The new world, we could have forged a new way, a new
could have-
path, free from the tyranny of the Brits. And instead we chose to do
Instead.
our school system the exact same way. First grade could have been the first grade.
Who
We
knows?
could have called it reception.
We could have called
But,
it
but
reception.
instead, those happen after weddings. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you call the party after a wedding?
Yeah, I think we call it wedding reception as well. Yeah.
So,
Well,
so
that's
do some
weird.
people
Actually, I
think that you're going back to kindergarten after the wedding?
So- Sometimes I think sometimes we call the actual wedding the wedding reception pending on where it's taking place. So if it's taking place in a registry office as opposed to a church, we have a registry office, which is essentially like a room with chairs, and you sign the thing, and we call that the wedding reception, and then it's the after party.
Oh, the after.
Okay, wait, hang on.
Hold on.
You have a room for registering for your marriage?
Is it only weddings?
You get to choose.
Is the registry office they only do weddings, or do they do other government documents?
I believe you can register your birth there as well. So if I needed to renew my certificate, I would go there to say, "Hey, I need a new birth certificate." It's like where you get your legal paperwork.
But you go to one central office for all of your legal paperwork?
Huh.
I think so, yeah.
Why don't you do like we do and have 9 different offices all over the place?
It's important to do 9.
And you need to have a car to get to all of them, and they all have different hours.
And you have to register the car in a different place too.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm lucky. I don't drive, so I've not gone those obstacles yet.
You don't see this idea that you don't like. That blows my mind because you can't. It's like there's a few cities in the United States, like a few that you could get away with not having a vehicle, or if you live in the right area of one city. But
we don't know how to use our land as well as they do.
Well, you think that's it? You think it's a land use issue?
Well, I think that when we came to the new world, there was so much
kindergarten.
It was
on the
like
Mayflower.
we have to have interstates.
Interstates are a new thing. They call it, what do you call it? The motorway.
It is the motorway. We have like they're named after like the M, like M1, M2, and then we also have A roads. I don't actually know what the A stands for. I think it's more of like the roads that have 2 sets of cars in each lane.
Oh yeah, that would be like a highway.
Obviously, we drive on the other side of the road as well.
Yeah,
well, we did know that.
Yeah. We are. Listen, mister,
you're aware of that?
Listen, mister, we are well aware. Every American sitcom, movie, or TV show that does anything abroad always has some scene where they're like, "Yeah, what's happening?
Driving on the wrong side of the road." It's every.
It's the
look,
go-to.
a lorry! Oh.
Things American loves.
So, Final Fantasy VII was a game that you played.
Yeah.
And so you beat it.
Yes. So when I went to secondary school, I was entering my early teens. So I was interacting I went to a different school. I met more people, made different friends. And obviously we had friends, we had things in common, one of them being Final Fantasy. So that stage of Final Fantasy was like discovering more of the secrets, like, the weapons, beating the weapons, getting this materia, getting the final limit breaks. So I was more in like a completionist phase then.
Cool.
And then as I entered my late teens and when I moved out on my own, I played it again. And this is where I've obviously learned a lot of life lessons. I've been a teenager and I've experienced my own struggles. So this next playthrough of Final Fantasy VII was very different. It's more of like understanding the characters and getting to know the story. And then I've recently played it before the remake was a thing, so I would have been like mid-20s. And again, it was more intimate with the story, with the characters, and understanding the world, the lore. Why does this person feel this way? Why are they talking this way? And really putting gameplay on the backseat this time and enjoying the story for what it is. And that's, like, for me, was the full package. Like, I've experienced it in various phases of my life with different aspects and things that I've learned, and Final Fantasy VII has been the thing that I've gone back to where it feels different. It feels different every time, and I think that will go into what we're going to talk to about the remake series, because again, this is a real different perspective of my favorite game, and I'm at a different age. I've learned more, and like, you weave theories and everything else in between with it. That's what I love about the game, because I always come back to it and I'm always taking something different away. So that would be like the short version of why I love Final Fantasy VII so much. It's brought me joy in so many different ways.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody that we've talked to has had some different formative story about how this game has impacted them personally, their relationships, their own mental health, and all that kind of stuff. How has this game developed you as a person? You said that it's your favorite game of all time. You started making content on it for this YouTube channel just a couple of years ago. And so what has been its lasting impact for you
Hmm.
to the point that you were like, I've got to return to it to make even more content about it?
I think it's the more opinions and the more people you meet that have played the game. Like I say, I lurk in people's streams to experience people's
Mm,
first time playthrough. I think because I've had this such longevity with the game in different aspects, like focusing on the gameplay and loving RPGs and digging into the numbers and stats and everything like that, and then learning about the story. And around the time where I was getting into the story is where the compilation came out. So it's like I got all this other information at the same time of me exploring the information, and it's just one of those. I think there's just so much to it, and I think you might have obviously experienced this with the people that you spoke to. There's just so many. You will learn something different once from someone else, from their perspective, or the way they've played the game. And
mm,
I just, because it's my favorite thing, I just want to take it all in, like give it me all, like fill me up with knowledge that I didn't know. Tell me that this character came from here. Tell me that you can do this if you get this material. Please let me know, because I like learning about this game.
Yeah.
I'm happy there's still things that I don't know.
yeah. This story has been very beloved, right? To the point that they have decided to repackage it for a whole new modern audience and sensibility. What is it about the story of Final Fantasy VII that um, is worth telling and retelling and repackaging and having this entire remake endeavor? What is it about the story that's worth telling?
I think it comes down to, I think that the shining stars of Final Fantasy VII, especially when it comes to this remake telling as well, it is the characters. Like I think
Mm,
the characters um, are so they're so different to one another, but there's still that connection between each character. And that isn't the actual overarching story. There is a common factor with all these characters, whether it's something they're struggling with, whether it's
mm,
something they learn, or just something that they accept. I think the way that it's told and the way that it's been able to be told in more depth and in certain aspects as well, a little bit differently, I think
mhm.
it's a pleasure to just take that in.
Hmm. With a game like Final Fantasy that you are describing your like stages of development in life alongside your playthroughs of the original. I played it as more of a video game when I was a kid, and then I started to get more into the story and the stats when I was, in secondary school and was older. And then when I understood like life and journey and the challenges and who I was, I played it again as an adult, right? Like you are separating the phases of your life in some ways by these ways that you've played and engaged with this game, Final Fantasy VII. Take us back to when they then announced that they were going to do the remakes. What is
Oh,
going through your mind? What are you feeling? And start walking us through that journey that kind of brings us up to your experience with remake, and then like on the precipice of when we're about to get Rebirth.
I think initially, like when they did the trailer, I think it was E3 2015, if I remember
Mhm.
correctly, I was like fanboy. All in all, I was just thinking of like, whoa, I get to experience this again. And I would have been a lot like a lot of people thinking that it was going to be very close in the style of what we got on the PS1. So I was like,
Mm,
oh man, it's going to be HD and they're going to talk and all of this thing, like how they're going to do it. And then as time went on and we learned it was going to be multi-part, I was all for it. Like I was all in. I as much as I would love like a one-to-one remake, I think that would, as I've told this kind of journey of different experiences, it probably might repeat one of these experiences that I've had.
mm,
Like, oh, this story again. I really like this story, but I don't think I've come away from something different. I think with me personally in the remake series is that I am I like to think that I know everything about it, and I said that there's always things that I learn, but this truly is a journey where I have no idea where it's going, and I'm all for it. I
I
want
love
it, and I
that.
want it now. And I'm
It,
kind of I'm really somber about it, like, because it's there is going to be an end to it, to this journey as
Yeah.
well. So, but
in
yeah,
the
I'm all for it.
in the 2015 trailer teaser, it talked about how it may bring joy, it may bring fear, this remake sort of thing. But regardless, they're coming back. And I think that has been a constant theme that I return to when I'm playing through this, because there are moments when it's like, this is subverting my memory of the original game a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, what do I do with this? How have you reckoned with your love for the original that you played back in the day and all the things that it's meant to you and some of the choices that they've made, especially in Rebirth, remake as well, but especially in Rebirth? How do you reckon with those things? You say you're all for it. How'd you get there?
So, I'm in, like, I know that's going to be, I already know, like, in the back of my mind, it's going to be more expansive. They have, on a technological standpoint, more of oomph behind them to show the vision that they originally wanted to show. So I'm like, okay, I'm coming up to certain moments through this game, and I'm like, no, it's like I know what's going to happen, but I also know what it felt like when I first played, how I envisioned it in my mind back then as well.
Yeah.
So you try and think of a classic game you've played, it's going to be very different to if you went back and played it. So remake and rebirth specifically as well hit those points of like, hey, this is how I imagined it. But for these scenes that have slightly changed and introduced other things, again, it's like, give it to me. I'm pretty acceptive of the fact that I have the original to go back to. If I am really pure and stubborn and want to experience that, I know that's always going to be there. I just like that this tree that I've been so used to, but the branches, there's more branches on this tree this time. I'm trying to visualize it, like there's more branches, and I guess if I click that into my anxiety, like it's a positive way of thinking of different things, like it's more of an imaginative
possibilities instead of fears.
possibility thing, like, and that's where like all the theories come in and everything else that follows it. I want to not know. So I like the little changes and the expansions and taking something from like Crisis Core and implementing it, because when that all came out, I took that all in. I watched Advent Children. I'll watch it again.
Yeah.
They can throw something into Rebirth where I'm going to be like, hey, ooh. Like
based on what you've experienced so far, we like to ask this question: why do you think that they decided to tell the story this way in 3 parts instead of one go?
I think they're trying to tackle it from so many different angles. I think they're trying to cater to a lot of people at the same time.
Sure.
So they are considering players like myself that have played it so many times and knows the story off the back of my hand. But they also want to, they know that they've got something here. And if they were to try and tell it to a new audience, how can we do that, but still kind of keep the old audience not being like, not gatekeeping, but knowing what happens? Is there a way we can slightly change the goal is the same, like the end of the game, we think is the same. And how can we change certain roads to that where everyone can travel together and meet at certain sections and talk about it and have differences of opinion?
There's like little water cooler stops, like a marathon. Like everybody stops at the watering hole and it's like,
they're like, have a quick, like just a quick swig and just recharge.
I don't know why I did like a dog.
It works.
Maybe.
But I think they are trying to tackle it from. I think they want to. I think also, like I mentioned, like they've got technologies changed so much,
Right.
and probably original concepts that they've got on paper. They can probably tell that they can tell it properly now, or they can tell it to the
Right.
full potential that they can do it, because I think that having it in 3 parts, there's both pros and cons. Like the pro is you have this arc that you're telling, like you are really enhancing and really just putting as much as you in there to make it work. But at the same time, we're having these breaks between each game, which is horrible. Like, it's
but it leaves so much space for us to have conversations too.
And
So it's more episodic, I guess. Yeah,
it's a double-edged sword having the gaps.
It is agonizing too, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but I don't know. I think they did it to try and tell the story that they wanted to tell, but at the same time, keep the people that know the game asking questions, because that was a key part of the original. And then with the newer players, kind of take them on this journey of why this story is probably one of the greatest video game stories of all time. Like, join us on this journey and try and experience it in this new way. It's hard because you've always got the original there. It's always going to be compared to it. So yeah, I think I answered what you were asking for.
I think it's a full opinion question. Why do you think that they decided to tell the story this way? So there's no right or wrong. There's just your experience and then kind of what you've appreciated. And I appreciated the way that you roped in kind of the 2 sides of the fan base. How do we make something accessible to a newcomer? But also, this is one of the most dived into video game stories of all time.
And I think, as we've seen online, it's difficult as well. It's a very difficult. It's a difficult thing. It's a difficult thing to accomplish.
Yeah, it's a little tricky. It
is. Rebirth tells a number of different stories, a number of different messages, highlights a lot of different relationships, but there are a couple of things that I think are pretty central, and especially based on the first part of our conversation. I'd like to visit this for the next moment or two. Cloud has a degree of mental trauma, kind of moving through his own psyche. And this is as much a journey of his mental state as it is a journey to save the world. In fact, Aerith at one point says, it's about saving the world and you. And so that's a huge piece of this game. The developers even did a mental health collaboration, talking about friends supporting one another and all this stuff. And there would be scenes of Cloud and Aerith high-fiving and things like that. In addition to that, in one of the early trailers for Rebirth, the game asks the question, what is fact and what is fiction? And I think all of this comes together. And as you were talking earlier, it really reminds me of all of this. When it comes to your process of thinking through the things that are fact and opinion, when it comes to your own journey of mental health, how do you see this game telling that story well? And does it falter at points? How was your impression and interpretation of this game's story as you were playing through it?
I think my interpretation, I'm pretty positive about it. I think it's been a very good telling, and I think it's been a good telling because it has posed those questions at various parts, like the classic, like, well, this wasn't in the original, or oh, this was in the original, or oh, this was part of this. And I like that constant like rethinking, and I think it falls back into the experience I've had with Final Fantasy VII, like discovering more, because they've been able to tell things that happened in the original the exact same, but because of just maybe the addition of voice acting or
Mm.
the way that the characters can emote a little bit more, or the scenery in the background. Like they're able to just, for me, hit the nail on the head a little bit more. And I don't find myself asking too much. I think it's more of the parts that where there is multiple things. I'm going to use the word things because it could be worlds, it could be
You're talking
memories.
about the realities, the worlds,
Yeah.
the timelines.
Yeah,
I think the clinical
is
term, the scientific term is things.
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 The various
all
antics that are going off.
Antics. I like that.
Shenanigans.
I think that's where I've asked the most questions.
Okay.
Personally, because it's like, okay, I think I'm trying to understand, like, okay, what is the underlying, what is this new? It's new to us that have played the original. What is this? What, and how are they trying to weave it into the story? Are they, and it poses questions like, are they trying to wing it? Does it have meaning? We really don't. We won't know until we have rolled credits on the third game of what they intended. But I like being on that journey. I'm enjoying it, and I'm not got like any kind of negative opinion on it.
Sure.
I enjoyed all of the facts and fiction that it posed. I liked it. I really liked it.
So with the antics and the things,
The
how do you make sense of that? How would you explain it to somebody that asked you?
It makes it worse when you put it in air quotes.
The antics.
Antics.
When
so if someone was asked,
supposed antics.
Antics. If someone was asking me about the antics and how I would explain it to them, how would I explain it to them? I would say that this is the same journey that I went on many years ago, but there is an antic that's going on that is diving into more of the, I mean, ultimately, I think to make this easier on myself is I believe this is all LifeStream related personally.
Okay.
That is
So
the core I'm in.
Explain the live stream a little bit then. We do have viewers that are fairly new to the Final Fantasy VII world and stuff. How do you make sense of the live stream?
So the live stream for me is a collection of memories of the planet, which involves people that have, I think it involves memories from both people that have passed and people that have yet to pass. It's all there, future, past, present. It is essentially the lifeblood of the planet. So the live stream is a culmination of things that will happen in 10 years, things that happened 20 years ago. And that's what the live stream is, my understanding of the live stream now. That's where I think I'm at with it.
Okay. So why is the live stream depicting all of these separate worlds? What do you think's going on there?
I referred to it to myself when I first experienced it as what ifs.
Okay.
What would happen if? So it's almost like a fan servicey thing at the same time, but at the same time they are able to tell it in a enriching way. They're not just being like, "Hey, here's Zach. We know you love Zach. Here he is." There is a meaning towards it. There is a journey. It doesn't matter where that journey ends, but it can go on after you think the end point is. And I think that's what we are experiencing. I like to compare it to Lost. It's probably my easiest.
Okay.
The way that they depict the final scene, like there's this place where people have passed before you. There's people that have passed after you. All that knowledge is there, and it's time for you to accept. That makes sense. I think.
Go ahead.
Am I going
My
off the?
mind is racing right now, and
Yeah,
I'm like, the Lost analogy is a good one. It's a
yeah,
really, really good one, and also ends up in church. Uh,
yes,
very
yep,
similar
yep,
to both Rebirth and Advent
And they
Children.
have flowers
yeah.
and
I
Bahamut.
don't know if I don't know if I keep missing the point. I don't know if I keep missing the question you're asking. I don't know if I'm
No,
slightly
no, no, you're
avoiding it
doing
or
a
if
great
I'm.
job.
Yeah,
This is really difficult stuff when it comes to trying to conceive of what's going on in the live stream. And so you say that Lost has helped you have a lens for understanding what's going on here. Can you
yeah.
describe that, especially for some people, just briefly, that may not have seen Lost? I mean, Evan and I obviously saw it, but it's been, a couple decades at this point.
Yeah,
I don't remember
It felt like a few decades in the middle of it too.
yeah. Luckily, I watched. I was a late bloomer to it. I managed to buy the box set, and I managed to
Yeah, I
experience it.
binged it in
I
a weekend.
hate that. Yeah, my brother was really into it. I really can't. I don't have a leg to stand on here. So yes, tell us about this Lost analogy and not about myself and my experience.
Essentially,
how does it help make sense? Yeah.
essentially at the core, I believe Lost is a journey of just moving on.
Okay.
It is the bottom line of it is recollecting all of the people you've met, all of the things that you've done, and being able to look back and be like, hey, that these are the people that I experienced these moments of life with.
Mm.
I am ready to move on to the next phase. It's like moving on and letting go.
Ooh, okay.
Is
So is this game story ultimately about acceptance, or is it about defying fate?
I think they are diving into both. I
Okay.
think they are trying to tell a tale of two tales. So, for example, we'll use Zach as the example. So I don't think it's just other people's perception of Zach. I think it's Zach himself. And I think during Rebirth, there is a point where he realizes, like, oh, wait a minute. This is what happened. I died. I think, and there is a point where I think he accepts that. There is a point in Rebirth where he accepts it. But at the same time, he's trying to not be. There's a point where I think when he dives off into like "smell you never" or something. I can't remember the exact line. And I think that's both of the way of the frustration of like, okay, I can see what's happening now, but at the same time, okay, I accept what's happening here. But then there's the more antics of other things. But yeah, I think it is the telling of like both defying fate and letting go of those people that have accepted fate.
When you talk about acceptance, defying fate, and letting go and moving forward, it strikes me that there could be a larger conversation here about how that's all of our kind of struggles in life.
Yes.
Many of us, especially as we hit, our 30s
Don't say
and late
numbers.
30s and beyond,
And beyond.
and beyond, we begin to ask the questions of what if. What if this had happened? If I had taken this fork in the road versus this other? And, in many cases, I maybe I'm speaking for myself here. I'm definitely speaking for myself here. You want to, in some ways, go back and defy that fate and say,
Yeah.
I'd like to go back and change that decision. And yet, that's an impossibility. Yet, it can inform my future possibilities in that very same moment. And the way that you've kind of described this and created these lenses and frameworks for acceptance, defying fate, moving on, all of this kind of stuff, these multiple worlds, they're interesting to think about, but ultimately they are going to be a dead end. Do you think that that's the case, or are they going to be coexistent by the end of this game?
I think that I think they will be to a certain extent a dead end. They will have an ending to them. I think that that's the funny thing, because I realized as I was trying to explain that, like, there's a part of me that when I'm trying to explain, like, do I have the facts to back this up? Like, I still have that feeling that I don't really know, but I think I know. So when it comes to like Dead End, or will it be like continuing on, I think there will be. I go to the scene. I truly think the scene in the Church of Advent Children where Zack and Aerith look at Cloud. I think that is. I feel like that's a key to some of these things. Like that's a part of that same thing that we're experiencing in these white spaces. Like that is a clear.
Can you say
that's
more
the
about
connection
that?
I've made.
Yeah.
Sorry?
So just say more about that. Advent Children, if you're tuning into this show for the first time, you might not know what Advent Children was. It's a TV show, or it's a movie. So it's a movie. So it's outside of the games. I just gave the worst explanation for Advent Children.
Solid C
that
plus maybe.
That we have done on the show. Point being, the look that they exchange in the church, what's the meaning behind that look, and what's the context that makes that significant to you?
I think it falls into two things that I've previously mentioned. I think it's Cloud letting go of the two people that have had very similar connections to him when it comes to death, especially the way they're telling it in Rebirth. Because when Zack died at the end of Crisis Core, he had that struggle of accepting it to the point where he adopted that persona and completely convinced himself. Similarly, they didn't do it. They didn't tell it this way exactly in the OG, but they're doing this in Rebirth. Is from what I'm getting from the end of Rebirth, is that he is similarly going through the same thing. Like Aerith has died, but he has not come to terms with it. He is struggling again, like this completely same scenario, and linking to that Advent Children scene. It's almost like a casual nod to like, hey, you guys go off. I'm Cloud, and they're also like their job is done, and I think that. I guess coming off just explaining it, like I get in these like light bulb moments, is I think the journey that Zack and now Aerith are taking in that white space is like, hey, we've got to help Cloud somehow from beyond, and I think the antics are a way of like giving more life to telling that story through their lenses. So it gives it more of a stake to that moment in Advent Children, just that casual, because I'm pretty sure Zach kind of like signs off and then there's a little thing to collect. Like it's like a, hey buddy, you did it. Like, and we were there every step of the way, and you might have not known it, but you've realized just now, kind of thing. I'm coming up with things as I'm talking about it.
I'd not really thought about that particular scene in Advent Children in the context of Rebirth, I guess, because in Rebirth there is this, like, Zack exists in this other world, and then there's this merger of worlds in some ways where Cloud and Zack are both in this very white sort of backdrop, and then Zack touches Cloud and they're able to team up against Sephiroth across worlds. And then Aerith also appears in this sequence as well with Cloud later. But the original game didn't have any of this. Like this was brand new stuff. And I've heard it said that the remake trilogy appears to be a sequel to Crisis Core, and that Advent Children is kind of a sequel to this, perhaps, or at least they're all going to link up in some great way. That remains to be seen due to vague vocabulary. Link up, when people are like, "Oh, how does it link up?" But I like the idea that you're bringing up of how this saga of Zack and Cloud and this world beyond and the present and the fiction of it all wraps up in this final moment where Aerith, I believe that her phrase is, she looks back at Cloud and says, "See, everything's all right.
Yeah.
And then Zach kind of gives his little salute send-off thing, and then they walk off into the beyond, and Cloud just smiles around all the people that he's made a current life with.
Mm.
When I think about the game in that respect, it really is about acceptance and moving on and processing all the things that have happened, but not changing them. And I think that there is a beauty to that. To me, that may be kind of the proof of concept in this message that's worth telling and retelling. I don't know. It's interesting. Is that how did your initial experience of it land, and how did you get to this point? Because our viewers continue to, like, their minds are just racing, like, well, it could be this and this. I hate this. I love this. All this kind of stuff. Was this an immediate, like, obviously this is what they're doing, or have you developed this over time?
So after completing Rebirth, I think because of all the theory talk that went off from Remake to Rebirth, I was purposely looking, especially during the ending, of like go-tos of where this is going, and not really focusing on the scene. So at the ending of Rebirth, I'm assuming that we can just roll with the spoilers and just when Aerith dies.
What?
Aerith dies, by the way. What the? Oh my goodness!
That is the Santa isn't real surprise of, like, Final Fantasy games, because there's always that scene, that time you have kids and somebody goes, I remember when I found out that Santa Claus was sorry. If there's kids in the car and you're listening with your parents, warning, there's Christmas spoilers ahead. There's that scene where, you know, they do that. Like, somebody says that, they're like, I remember when I found out Santa wasn't real, and every friend group has a, like, person who goes, what? Santa's not real.
What? Aerith dies?
What? Aerith dies?
No.
Anyways,
not true.
Sorry.
Antaroth killed Aerith.
We're hitting the tangent portion. I'm sorry.
But when that initially happened, because I was so fixated from a personal kind of problem-solving perspective, the ending didn't, like, hit at all for me. And I was like, I think when the credits rolled, I was like, hold on a minute. And I think a lot of people felt this way as well at first. I think, and it wasn't until I replayed the entire, like, ending City of the Ancients thing where I was like, oh, okay, this is what they're doing. The way they're telling it, they're purposely doing, like, because everyone's very confused of why we didn't see the body get put down in the water, and why it was all fuzzy during the actual death. And I was one of those people as well. I was like, well, that's a really weird way of telling it. But it took me to watch it again to take it in. And the way that I started linking it, the way I've explained, I mean, a lot of it is, well, some of it is clicked on as we're talking. I think that's the beauty of it. You kind of like, hold on a minute, I didn't think of that. So, but initially I was like, okay, what have we got here? We've kind of got, like, again, Aerith and Zack, when it comes to Cloud, when you look at them with the relationship with Cloud, they have exactly the same path, like from like being a vital part of Cloud's life to dying in his arms, like exactly the same.
Yeah.
So I always thought that, like, that has got to be like a crux of something like that. There is a reason why these two moments and the way that they've impacted Cloud are all the same. Like, where are the other parts of the story where I can, like, take to make this make sense? Because what I could be saying could be wrong, and I'm very accepting of that. If it's wrong, that's fine. I'm here for the journey.
Yeah.
But I started trying to find things, and I was like going back through all of the different scenes in Rebirth and looking back at Remake. And then I went to, like I say, I went to Advent Children, and that specific scene where those three characters, it's the first time those all three characters, well, it's the first time all those three characters are interacting with each other at the same time, I think. I might be wrong, but I think it is the first time that all three of them are in a vicinity. I'm sure there'll be maybe someone that might correct me.
They will let us know.
I don't mind. Like, please correct me. Like,
no worries.
But I'm pretty sure.
Back under the bridge, trolls.
Yeah.
Get back, troll!
Stay there. I am
Love you.
right.
Thanks for
What I'm
watching.
saying right now, I am correct in what I'm saying.
It's definitely right. Don't worry. Trolls, you can come out of the bridge. Come out. Come out, trolls. You're welcome here, trolls. Come on, trolls!
I think that's why. Stay under there. I'm talking.
Never mind. Get back under the bridge, trolls. You trolls.
Are you quoting something?
No, I'm doing a bit.
Well, I will happily roll with it.
Do it a bit. Do it a bit. We've learned a valuable lesson today. And it's Wade and I shouldn't do 5 straight hours of interviews.
Hey, kudos to you, Coach.
You've gone delirious. Great.
You've lost me.
All right, Jen, please continue. Sorry.
I'm just gonna mute myself.
I think that moment in Advent Children, because of to me, is the first time all 3 of them are all aware of something. That's why I think there are pieces missing in Rebirth. They need to have pieces missing to fill in the third game. So that's obviously a reason from that kind of standpoint. But I think I've got the pieces that I want to roll with in the way that I'm taking the story. I've not quite got there all the way. And I think that's the beauty of it. I think there's a lot of theories out there that they've got the points where you're like, hey, okay, I know what you're talking about, but we don't quite have the connecting line just yet. And it might end up being a connecting line, it might not, and that's okay. But I think what I'm rolling with and the way it made me understand was that point in Advent Children of like what I know about Zach, what I know about Cloud, what I know about Aerith, and I thought that was the click in for me.
Oh yeah. Well, we always ask the question. I told us I was going to mute myself and then wait. Go ahead. I got something in my eye when I did my troll.
Yeah, I was like, "Are you okay?"
No, I'm not okay.
You were in character. You went all in to the point where you nearly lost an eye.
I know, and I'm so sad about Aerith that I just found out.
I know
about
you're just wiping your eyes.
I just like,
Don't get me started.
Aerith. No, the question that we ask. Can I ask it about sticking the landing, Wade? Please, pretty please.
Sure, yeah, that's exactly where I was going next.
I knew it. I could read your mind if I could ever get my eyes.
Just wipe the tears from your eyes first.
I can't. She's gone. Or is she? So for you say they've left some gaps and you understand why they had to do that. That being said, what do you think, in your opinion, do they need to do to stick the landing here in part 3?
What do they? Oh, that's such a loaded question, isn't it? That really, really is, because we have a whole another possible 80 hours of like, storytelling and antics. Do
you want me to yell at the trolls while you think about it? I can't. Okay. He's like, please.
I think they might have. They seen what happened to the eye. They knew the
series. He says,
they've gone.
He says, please don't yell about the trolls again.
What they need to do to stick the land, I think they need to commit. Like I see the comments that they've made that they're listening to fan feedback and that it influences them to a certain degree. I hope that stays as a certain degree, because I think that fans can bring something out of a creator that they might have not explored. It's hence the remake and Rebirth is a prime example of that they can expand or change things. But I think to stick the landing, they need to commit to what they've set up, like this mystery that we've got, because we're asking the question, is Aerith alive? Is the dead? People are going to have answers to that question already, and that's fine. They need to be able to, they need to answer these. They can't leave anything off the table. I think this needs to be, I would like, I think, the book to be closed. I would like to see the end at the end of the credits of the third part, and that be the end, and no more questions to the point where they can create something else, but maybe questions that we can ask to ourselves on like, hey, wow, this thing in remake really makes sense now, but why does it make sense? Oh, because Like, I rather those questions where we finally connecting the dots as opposed to
Hmm.
why, who, what's happened to this guy? Like, what's happened to this person? I want it to be, I want the chapter to be closed, I think. And I think they need to do that. I think they need to commit.
So from a sheer fanboy perspective, what do you want to see in part 3?
What do I want to see in part 3? I want to really dive into Cloud's psyche. I
Okay.
think the most exciting part to me is the retelling of the live stream sequence, because when I went back and played the original, and that live stream sequence is so powerful, and it's just text. It's just, you are doing the reading and you're using your imagination.
Yeah.
I am really excited to see, to the point where I don't need to use my imagination as much. I can just take it in and see all of these real emotions that I can relate to now as well. Like these mental struggles. I'm excited to do it. And it seems like they've set up an extra part of that with the death of Aerith. I think that's going to be a thing that they add in, but it's going to make sense because it's going to complete that journey. Because I think in the original, it was like accepting that he thought he was Zack, accepting that he is a real person. He was a childhood friend of Tifa. And I think the other thing might have been, I think there was 3 pillars in the, I can't think of the third one, but I think it's related to just him knowing who he is. But I think the 4th thing is accepting Aerith's death. And I think that's going to be very, very, they have the potential to make that very powerful. So everything that people wanted from this game, they can actually execute really well. As for other things in part 3, as a fanboy, just pure fan boy, is I want Zack and Aerith to interact with one another, because I have not seen that since Crisis Core.
Yeah.
And they never had the chance to as far as we're aware, to say goodbye.
Yeah.
They have a gap to fill in from when they last met in the church before Zack went off to the Nibelheim mission, to the point where they are standing in the doorway together in Advent Children. How did they end up in that doorway? And I think they are both in the same space now to explore that, to make that a journey.
I would love that.
That's really cool.
I would love that. I hope they don't build another wagon.
No.
Like they did in Crisis Core. But beyond that, I love it.
Yeah. They could make an airship or something that travels the live stream. They could be like planet protectors.
I was hoping for Cloud snowboarding on the live stream.
Oh.
You watched my stream last night.
Is that what you did?
Oh, did you? Oh, you didn't. So one funny story. This is for everybody. If you go into the Gold Saucer, there's a big banner of Kate Sith and some chocobos snowboarding. And it's like there's a NPC that says coming soon. But if you look carefully on it, the like movement animations or drawing sketches are green wisps, which kind of looks like they are like on the live stream, or they're snowboarding through the live stream. And so on chat last night.
Stop, you did not.
We did. We literally said this.
Am I allowed to have an original thought?
You're not, unfortunately. There are no original thoughts. Sorry, Evan. But wouldn't it be funny if Cloud and Ghost Aerith went snowboarding, and everybody's really sad, and they're like, Cloud, why are you snowboarding? It's like, what? We're fine. Aerith and I are having a great time snowboarding down this mountain. Look at her shredding down this mountain here.
I can just imagine that happening, and there's going to be Zack at the bottom with his own snowboard, just standing there like, hey, what gives, man? So Cloud is having this conversation like, oh, dude. And then the rest of the group come down and like, Cloud, what the hell's going on?
What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you?
And Barrett replaces his gun
not.
with one little ski so he can ski on the ground.
Hey, look, Zack's here too. I remember him. He's right there.
All of my friends are here. Who are y'all? And why are you so sad?
Do you guys think Red 13 would have 4 snow like skis, one for each paw, or do you think he would snowboard upright?
I think he'll be on either a sled or he'll equip himself with a jet ski.
A sled
or a jet ski
a snowmobile. Sorry, jet.
It's just an ice.
If they went back to
jet
Costa
ski.
del Sol,
Yeah, it's just an ice
or
jet
the jet
ski.
skis of the mountain.
You got it covered.
But yeah, I can imagine like Red 13 on like a little bit of a rope and a sled, or maybe there's a bit where he drags the party.
Oh,
maybe,
like a
I don't know.
sled
Maybe
dog.
there might be a bit of.
Gosh. Even Red 13 and maybe Kate Sith, like they're dog sledding. How funny would that be?
Maybe when they get lost at the bottom, maybe that's a method of trying to get out. Like, we've got to collect some wood, build a little thing. We'll pull you out.
That's it. And Red's got the limit break sled fang, so maybe it's dog sled.
It's already
gives him the
there.
extra boost.
We're gonna have to data mine the game and figure it out. Or if it's just all the cats from
Listen to this
remake.
Do what?
Just imagine all the cats from the cat alcove, and then they just pull the sled. It's just
all the cats.
A total meow fest.
All the
Betty's
cats.
It's a total
all of
meow
Betty's
fest.
cats
All
make
right.
a return.
Well, as we kind of wrap up our discussion that I have helped facilitate very well, our discussion with lots of antics.
Well, okay, so Jen, thank you so much for being on tonight.
Hey, I appreciate it.
You've helped us think in so many really cool ways. Tell everybody where they can find you. What are some things that you've got coming up that we can look forward to?
Yeah, sure. So you can find me here on YouTube under Genesis 7. What you can expect from me at the moment is like I'm still like tackling Final Fantasy from different perspectives, doing a lot of tier lists and just kind of trying to create new conversations around old things. But also I'm also venturing out because, as I mentioned, I grew up as a Sega kid. I never played the Nintendo. So there is a lot of RPGs that I missed. And there's a lot of RPGs that I missed before I discovered Final Fantasy VII. So I'm also going on that journey. So if you want to hear a fresh opinion on a game that might be one of your favorites, or if you want to see me play it live, then my Twitch would be also a place to come hang out. And I think you can also find me on Twitter and other social networks across the board. So
there we go.
I'm just having a good time. So if you want to see what that good time's about, come have a peek.
Good time and good vibes. Everybody go and follow Genesis 7 on YouTube and Twitch. We'll put those links in the description as well, so make sure you check that out. Also, be sure to continue watching our Final Fantasy VII Rebirth lecture series as we continue interviewing other content creators, putting out video essays, and of course our live streams every Tuesday and Thursday night. That's what we've got today, and really just wait around a couple days because I bet another video is going to drop pretty soon. I don't know when this one's dropping, but I know that we've got tons of more content coming out soon. So thanks so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time in class. Until then, walk tall, my friends. Bye.
Get back into the bridge, troll! Thank you so much to Martin for joining us for this interview. We had a great time. Lots of laughs, lots of fun. We appreciate it. Thanks to Husky by the Geek for our theme music. It's great. Thank you to Nick Smith for our graphics. You did a great job. We really appreciate it. Good luck in college. I know that you got that soccer scholarship, so stay focused. And most of all, we want to thank you, listener, viewer, because this program is brought to you by viewers like you. This doesn't happen without you. So we're really grateful for you. I hope everything's going okay in your world, in your life. You're going to make it. You got this. And we will see you next episode. Bye-bye.